Hello, this is Hands-on Continuous Integration and Delivery with Jenkins X and Kubernetes. This is Section 6, Extend Kubernetes Cluster with Jenkins X Apps and Add-ons. In this section, we'll look at adding apps to Jenkins X add-ons, monitoring Jenkins X with Prometheus, and Jenkins X dashboard with Grafana. Adding apps to Jenkins X. In this video, we'll learn a little bit about apps. We'll look at adding MongoDB as an app and approving apps with GitOps. In our previous sections, we looked at the JX get applications command. There we saw applications that we had added to Jenkins X using JX create quick start or JX import. And in that case, Jenkins X was managing the build, the compile, the test, the packaging, the deployment of that application. Now we're going to talk about apps. And even though the name is similar, an app is different from an application. With an app, Jenkins X is only managing the deployment to Kubernetes. It's not managing the build, test, assembly, all of those pieces. With an app, we're going to deploy to Kubernetes from a Helm chart. Now, in the previous section, we looked at deploying Helm charts to Kubernetes directly, but in this case, we'll allow Jenkins X to do it so that it can manage that deployment for us. It will manage it using GitOps, which means we'll have a commit to our Git repository to track the deployment of the app so that if we need to rebuild the cluster, run JX boot again, we will get that same app back up and running. So this is more of a managed way to install things on our Kubernetes cluster using Jenkins X. Let's go ahead and we will look at an example. We'll look at an example of using MongoDB as our app. So we'll use Jenkins X to deploy that to our Kubernetes cluster. We will use the JX add app command. Then we'll provide the name of the Helm chart that we're going to deploy. And finally, we'll add the Helm chart repository that it's going to come from. I'm using a pretty standard repository here. I've copied it to the clipboard so I don't mistype it. You can look in the README file in the example files in order to see this command. So when I hit enter here, it will launch this command. It will go out to that Helm chart repository. One thing I should note, if you followed along with the last section and you installed your own Helm binary, Jenkins X may try to use it. Hopefully by the time you are going through this course, that will work just fine. But just in case you get an error that says that Jenkins X doesn't yet support Helm 3, you will need to move that Helm binary out of your path, either delete it or just move it to another directory or rename it. As of right now, the support in Jenkins X for Helm 3 is being added even as we speak. It should be there in the near future, but if you are an early adopter of this video, you may see that error message. And again, you can look in the README for more information about that. So I'll need to go through a series of prompts here in order to install MongoDB. For the most part, these are just MongoDB prompts, and the exact values you put in here aren't too important, but the first one we do want to say yes to. It won't work correctly if we don't enable password authentication. So I'll go ahead and say yes here. And then it'll ask me for a number of other items. I won't make you watch this. We'll come back when it's done. Okay, so here we are back, and I've finished answering the prompts. You'll note at the bottom, it says that it's created a pull request. So we're used to, when we do a JX import to bring in an application, we're used to it automatically doing the first build of that application, the first deployment, all the way out to the staging environment. And that included merging in pull requests automatically as it went. But in this case, with an app, it's not going to automatically merge in this pull request for us. It's something that it's going to let us do ourselves. So if we go to this URL, I'll just pull this up in the browser. You can see we have a pending pull request. It's waiting to add MongoDB. It identifies the version number that we're adding based on the latest version in the Helm chart. As I scroll down here, you can see that it's gone through a promotion build and that's been successful, but it's waiting for an approval here. Now I can either do that by adding an approve comment, but I can just also go ahead and click this merge pull request. So this is a key part of GitOps. The idea here is that we give another person on the team potentially a chance to look at this new app that we're deploying to our Kubernetes cluster. They can review the changes that we've made. They can review all of the configuration, and they can make sure that it matches what's expected before we commit this change to the cluster. So this is just intended to give you a way to put a review cycle in, not necessarily for a code change, but in this case, for a configuration change. I'll go ahead and hit merge, and then we'll click confirm merge. And in a moment, that pull request goes ahead and it merges into master. At this point, JenkinsX will start actually deploying the Helm chart to our Kubernetes cluster in order to get our Kubernetes cluster to match the new configuration in our Git repository. That will take a few minutes, and we'll take a look at it when it's finished. And here we are back again, and it has finished deploying. If we jump back over to the terminal window, we can see that. The first thing we'll do is a jx get app command. And that lists the one application that we've added together with the version and information on the Helm chart. Of course, since we've learned our kubectl commands, we can go ahead and inspect it on the cluster for ourselves. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll start out by listing the deployments. And as you can see, one of these deployments is called JenkinsX MongoDB. So it's gone ahead and it's added the JenkinsX prefix to the name to indicate that that's something that it's managing. And you notice that this is brand new. It was only added less than 2 minutes ago. We can also look at the pod that's running as a result of that deployment. And if we find the MongoDB pod in here, here it is. I'll just go ahead and copy that to the clipboard. So I just wanted to show you the kubectl logs command. I'll paste that pod in there. And this will show us that indeed we see MongoDB running in our cluster because we've added it as a JenkinsX app. So that shows how we can use JenkinsX apps to have JenkinsX manage Helm chart deployments on the cluster for us using GitOps, so that anytime we install our Jenkins cluster again from scratch, all of this stuff will be installed to it again. It can manage the version that's currently running, it can manage updates, and all of that is captured in the Git repository. That concludes our look at installing JenkinsX apps.